of darkness. We take the old Roman festival that was called Sol Invictus, the invincible sun, and we remember that hour precisely when the darkness seems to be in danger of overcoming the light. The danger of darkness seems all too apparent to us at the moment, with recent attacks in Paris, in San Bernardino, with the conflict throughout the Middle East, especially in Syria. And perhaps most of all, the growing fear that we can identify this problem as being caused by an irrevocable conflict between Christianity and Islam, as if all we had to do was keep away from Muslims and everything would be fine. Just this year, as it happens, two great religious calendars suggest to us that we should think about the relationship between Christianity and Islam in a different way. This year, quite unusually, the birth of Jesus and the birth of Muhammad fall tonight. That usually doesn't happen, for the simple reason that in Christianity we keep what's called a solar calendar. That's why we make the big fuss on New Year's Eve. While in Islam, the calendar is not on the basis of the sun, but entirely on the basis of the moon. And therefore, they are very rarely in sync. This year, they are, even while the news cycle insists that they're locked in some kind of mortal combat. Of course, the two births at this sacred moment carry different meanings. There's no doubt about basic differences between these religions. But at the moment of the births, each of the two religions insists on a common wisdom. Listen to what the Prophet Muhammad says in the Quran about what it is that occurs on this night. This was the first revelation the Prophet said he ever received. It is said in the Quran, recite, in the name of your Lord who creates man from a lump. It's a wonderful word in Arabic, lump. It refers both to the clay, the dust from which people are made, and also to the moment of conception. Who creates man from a lump. Recite, and your Lord is most generous. He taught by the pen, taught man what he knew not. This same passage of the Quran goes on to say that human beings are never self-sufficient. And when they think they are self-sufficient, that's when they do their worst. There's a similar wisdom when the mother of Jesus received the news that she was to bear God's Son. It's interesting, isn't it, that both these messages are given by the angel Gabriel, both to Muhammad and to Mary. She rejoiced because she said, God brought down rulers from thrones and exalted humble people. Receiving revelation demands humility. Different kinds of humility. The humility in the case of Muhammad is metaphysical. It's the realization, it is simply extraordinary, that life can come from this basic clay from which we are all formed. While in Luke's gospel, the humility is more social. It comes from the recognition that God actually prefers people of low standing. He refuses the claims of the alleged might separate ways. The Quran denies that God can have a son. It denies it because the Quran believes that would undermine the assertion that God is one. Instead, Muhammad is taken to be the prophet who wraps up the revelation of earlier prophets, including Jesus. The New Testament goes another way. It insists that prophecy has never stopped. That prophecy goes on to this day. That everyone baptized into Jesus' name receives God's Spirit and lives with the same power that once inhabited the prophets of old. This is an argument. The two religions cannot be homogenized together as if it could be all patched up with a simple compromise. We face in the persona of the other basic differences which reveal who we are and who the other is. They result in the two religions honoring different births. But it's interesting that Christianity, just like Islam, finds itself in dispute about when this birth is. I mean, we do December 25th, right? But the Orthodox Christians do January 6th, the Epiphany. And it's interesting that in Islam, Sunni Muslims keep the birth of the Prophet on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal, which is today, while the Shia do it on the 17th of the month. Don't you love the way they behave like Protestants and Catholics? Is human traditions do tend to divide up into factional differences. That shouldn't surprise us within the development of religions. That is a basic in our observation of what has gone on in the past and what is occurring now. Dates of observance are a good opportunity to establish lines of demarcation. Why do you think Jews do Saturday and Muslims do Friday and Christians do Sunday? We know who we are by those differences. But then, as deep of these differences are, there are times when it can just be taken too far, and we forget what our common source is. Just recently, both the faculty and students at a place called Wheaton College in Illinois have decided that they had to suspend a teacher. At first it was said they suspended the teacher because she had taken to wearing the hijab. But then it turned out, no, the president of Wheaton said, we don't suspend her because she wore the hijab, we suspend her because she said Christians and Muslims worship the same God. That is really something we want to dispute. I know how far fundamentalists like to go. Let me tell you that I have fallen afoul at a professor at Wheaton College because my historical view of Jesus doesn't happen to match his doctrinal view of Jesus. He was writing on the basis of 19th century sources. I was writing on the basis of 1st century sources. I know which I prefer. But the fact that I don't happen to agree with him does not make me not a Christian. And the fact that we disagree with Muslims does not mean we do not worship the same God. In fact, the authorities at Wheaton have basically come to the point that they are denying a basic principle of the Gospels. Since the Gospel according to John, our patron, Christians have recognized that Christ, as the light of God, enlightens every person coming into the world. Every person coming into the world is enlightened by the light of God. That light has always been with humanity, always which is why Christians, commonly with Jews and Muslims, really do worship the God of Abraham. That's why we are called Abrahamic religions. We commonly worship the creator of the world and of any worlds that may happen to lie beyond our perception. Our common assertion is there's one God. True, we disagree vehemently about how that God is revealed. Is it Torah? Is it Christ? Is it the prophet? Go have an argument. But in the argument, do not deny that we are talking about the same reality. Because all these religions understand that humanity is made for God, and God has made himself for humanity. Those who follow Jesus have always recognized that their discipleship gives them not a different God from everyone else's. It's not a different God. It's rather that we have special access to the God of all. The authorities of Wheaton have forgotten that call of faith, forgotten the basic wisdom that revelation demands humility as a precondition. Sometimes, for the mind to be enlightened, the heart must first be instructed. Now to God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we ascribe as is most justly due all might,